I'll sit on my hands and mouth, or I may raise my hand once in a while.
NM.gov. And
All right, folks. Well, while we are letting Paul and Lois set up, while they continue to do that, I thought I'd go ahead and do a quick introduction and give you guys some background on why we are meeting. So I am Justin Muska, for those of you that don't know. I actually don't think I've had the pleasure of meeting any of you. So I am the project manager on what we are calling the IBIS program. The IBIS system is a long-running system that was actually developed in large part and designed by Paul and Lois here many years ago, and they've been maintaining it for some time. So Paul and Lois are, I think, soon to retire. So after that, we are looking to actually take the IBIS system into DOH hands, and we're just sort of gaining and gathering some visibility and awareness of the system for all of our developers and things like that. So we'll get into it some more, but I thought I'd give a quick background. Basically, we're going to demonstrate this system to you guys. If we have time at the end, we'll do a Q&A, but it's basically just for you guys to get an idea of what the IBIS system is all about and what it does.
I see some familiar names there, Gabriel and Rohit. Hi. So, Justin, you want me to just
Take it away, Lois.
in?
Yeah.
Take it away? Okay.
Lois is going to jump on it again. Paul and Lois are here, helping us out in migrating the system, handing it off to the DOH, and they are our subject matter experts on the IBIS platform. So go ahead, Lois.
All righty. So I have a couple of PowerPoint slides to start with, but then I'll just go to the app and kind of go through what I had in my PowerPoint presentation. So let me. Okay. Excuse me. All right, so IBIS has 3 components. And one of the things, well, 3 components, the view application, the admin application, and a query application. And the name of that executable program is HiIQ Func for hospital inpatient internet query functionality or something like that. It dates way back, but it's been updated and keeps going. The data, there's a relational database in the system for the admin system, and there are SAS data sets for the query system. So those are the kinds of data on the back end. And then there are other types of pages. So that, let's see. All right, so the types of pages that we have some static pages. Oh, give subtitles a try. You can see that? Yeah. Oh, I'm sharing the wrong screen. I'm sorry. Display settings, DOI. Hello. Go away. There we go. Sorry. Okay, so there are static pages and some dynamic pages and well, I'll get into it. Sorry, I'm just getting warmed up here. I had some difficulties logging into the network and I was on my, at the last minute. Okay, I'll take a breath. All right, so this is the NM-IBIS homepage. The URL for the homepage is IBIS .doh.nm.gov. And the site is available to the public. It's available to the world on the World Wide Web. And there's a sister site that is the New Mexico Tracking site, or Environmental Public Health Tracking. This is a special kind of system that's been funded by the CDC to provide environmental health data to a nationwide tracking system. And so the IBIS application was built to satisfy the needs of both of these kind of sites. So the NMIBIS site is for community health assessment, and it is focused on allowing the public, community health councils, legislators, that kind of folks, to get to health data easily. And it's also used a lot within the department as a centralized repository for data, so people can do queries and all whatnot. So the difference between the two sites is mostly look and feel. There are a few navigation differences, but essentially they're the same IBIS software with just different CSS creating a different look and feel. All right, now I'm going to I'm going to escape out of the presentation. Go away and move my browser over here. And let's just look at a few things. Okay, so here's NMIBIS, and I think I'll stick with NMIBIS, just I'm more familiar with it. And, you know, the two sites are similar enough. I don't think we need to look at both of them. So the static pages on the site, there's really relatively few static pages. And these are basically, these are XML files that are transformed by a style sheet into HTML before they're sent to the user. And the static pages are then embedded in that style sheet. They're embedded in the IBIS you know, header and look and feel and all that kind of stuff. And then all right, that's a little later. So what we try to do is guide users through the health topics. So if I go to this health topic, for instance, chronic disease, say, here I have a page that has some static content. This image and this text over here is static. And then these links on the side link to two different kinds of pages. The first are indicator reports. And so we have things like heart disease, diabetes. This is an indicator report, and basically it's a profile of this indicator. So a health indicator is a quantitative measure of some important health construct. So heart disease being the leading cause of death, actually it trades off. Sometimes it's cancer, sometimes it's heart disease. This is an important public health construct that we like to maintain. We like to get information out to the public. You can see this isn't necessarily the most current. There's been a lot of staff turnover in the heart disease program and the IBIS program at DOH, and that's one issue of keeping these things current, or one issue is keeping these things current. In the indicator report, there are different views, and for instance, these are, we call these data views. So you can slice and dice the data in different ways. Here's looking at cardiovascular disease death by age. Other data views, for instance, by county. Would produce a map, anything geographic, almost anything you can get, we can have a map in IBIS, and a bar chart. And there's different kinds of bar charts that you can choose from, and a data table. And this is so the map is rendered by an open source product called Leaplet, and it's embedded into the IBIS application. And the charts and the data tables are rendered by IBIS, but are the program that provides them to the IBIS app to render them is called Kendo. It's a Telerik, I think, systems, Telerik software. Kendo, this is a Kendo chart and a Kendo data table. These data are entered into the admin system. So remember the three components of IBIS. One of them, that yellow on the left-hand side, is the admin system that has the relational database.
We're not seeing that.
I know, it's
Okay,
a slide that I put up earlier, sorry. But this is the admin system. This is a look at the interface to the admin site. Let's see, I can bring that up real quick, I guess. So this yellow is the admin system, data admin. And so there's an interface that sits over a relational database. And what happens, what this is for is to create these indicator report pages. So the public health subject matter expert, like the cardiovascular disease death, cardiovascular health program, EPI or whomever, would log into the admin system, and they would be able to access their own data for their own indicators, maybe not everybody's indicators, just their own. So there's also a authentication and security aspect to the admin system. They would maintain the data, and then when they're ready, there's a process by which the indicator report is reviewed and approved, and then there's a gatekeeper who does a publish for that indicator report. So here's a look at the admin system. And if I go to, there's a lot of C indicators, but I think can cardio, heart death. So here is a look at how the subject matter expert would go in and modify and maintain their indicator report data. So for instance, we have this data view by county, and the subject matter expert can go in and see what their data views are. These are the data views that we saw up here. And if we go to the county data view, and these are unique identifiers for each of the data views. So we have county. They can put in some data notes. There's a title by county, New Mexico. The date is automatically provided. The data are the data views records, so 160.4, etc. And the subject matter expert can enter these into this table in the admin application by hand, or there's a way that they can paste the data from Excel and then merge the data into the data table, the data set for this indicator. So one thing I want to mention are, for any given indicator, there is a what we call a data set in the admin database, the relational database. And it's sort of a data cube that has data for all these views in it. So all the different dimensions that create these views. So there's a year dimension and, you know, age, sex, race, etc. So these are all in a data set for this indicator. And one of the things about IBIS that's pretty cool is that these data exist once the report data are published. So they go through that process. There's a publish controller in the Java part of the app. It pulls the information, the data out of the relational database and publishes it to the view application as XML files. So in these XML files are all the data, for instance, for this cardiovascular disease and heart disease death indicator. And those data can be used in different ways. So one of the ways that we use it is in this data view by county, but we also have community reports. So the indicator reports can be viewed one indicator at a time. So here's your public user coming in. They can look at the data by indicator, or they can look at it by community. So any indicator that has a county view, well, there's another requirement, but if it has a county view, county is a community dimension. So that indicator can be viewed by county. So here's Bernalillo County. We can look at, for instance, Los Alamos. Los Alamos is kind of boring. It's better, except in older adult falls deaths. We can also, there are other community dimensions like race ethnicity. If we look at the race ethnicity community type, there are standard Department of Health ways of parsing or looking at race ethnicity, and we can look at these by race ethnicity. And we can also go back to the indicator from the community report. There's an issue here with a confidence interval. So one of the things we like to do is to show confidence intervals for data. And that has a meaning because when we look at data by year, for instance, if we're looking at a really small population, there's a lot of variability in the data by year, and that stability over time is indicated by these confidence intervals. So you can see there that one of the things that comes up in that pop-up, the second and third lines, are confidence intervals. So that's something we like to report with the data when it's available. Okay, so let's see. Indicators, the admin system The view system is the system that displays all of the pages that the user sees. So that the user comes in through a welcome page in the view site. The public users don't see the admin site. The admin site is specifically for subject matter experts to maintain their data and then to get it published onto the view site. The view site also provides access to queries. So if I go back to here, queries, I can query data sets. For instance, death data. If I look at underlying cause of mortality by county, let's say I want to look at age-adjusted rates. I can jump to a default query and then modify it from there, or I can customize my query first. I'm going to look at age-adjusted rates and heart disease, which is a little bit different definition than cardiovascular disease. But let's select heart disease. We've got 2021 is the most recent year of data right now, and we're going to display it by the selected geography type. So here under geographic area, we have some choices. We can look at New Mexico overall. We can look at the county of residence, the health region, or by urban and rural counties. The default is county. So I'm going to look at it by county. Let's have a chart. Let's have a vertical bar with data labels. And we're going to use the default map. There are different kinds of colors of maps that you can use. So this is running a query. And what happens, okay, so here's heart disease. Here's the county map. That query ran on the fly. There's a SAS application on the back end with those SAS data sets. Here's our bar chart with data labels. Here's our data table with confidence limits and the number of deaths and the population estimate. And one of the things that IBIS does is it flags records. So I talked about that data stability, which is a function of the rate compared to the confidence interval. So it flags data that are not stable. So it says, you know, you may not want to use this for important decisions, or, you know, try combining years or age groups, and then the data will be more stable. The other thing it does here, which you'll recognize, well, that there are some asterisks and no data for Harding County. And if we go to the footnote, it says, if you can see this, let's see, Control++, or not. It says this estimate has been suppressed because the number of events are small and not appropriate for publication. So why we do that cell suppression, we call it, is because for really small populations, you could potentially identify who that is. And we don't want the public or any users to be identifying people, because even though there's no PHI or protected health information in the IBIS data sets, it would still be possible to run multiple queries if you have a really small number and say, well, what's their age and sex and race? So, well, Harding County, I know who that Asian is, you know. So that's why we suppress cells. So all that functionality is provided by IBIS. So let's look at this diagram again. What happened when we ran that query is we came into the view application and it gave us selection page, which is maintained in the view application as an XML file, transformed to HTML by a style sheet, and then sent to the user. The user makes their selections. So there's a selection page. The selection page is maintained as an XML file. I went to age-adjusted rates and I said, I want to customize my query first. And that took me to a page with these steps where I can choose my query selections, make my query selections, my query criteria. So this page is also on the View app as an XML. Those selections then are submitted by the View application to the query application, this CGI application on the back end, HiIQ Func. This query application uses the URL that is sent, and it consists of name value pairs. Let's see, I think I have one of those here. And so it has the request. It says, I want to request the query application to do this, and it has all these name value pairs. There's a config file, a function file, there are dimensions listed. So those are all part of the backend query engine. Here, these config, function, variable, various files. Then the IBIS-Q application uses the name value pairs. It actually writes a SAS program and submits it to the commercial SAS application. SAS runs that dynamic program against in this case, it was the mortality death certificate data set. This is a SAS data set on the back end. And SAS returns a little data file that gets provided, sent back to the IBIS-Q application. IBIS-Q uses one of these text files called a map file that maps the SAS output to an XML format. And that XML formatted data, XML formatted data is passed back to the View application and then combined with other elements of a results page to create a results page that's then transformed into HTML and sent to the user. All right. And I think, let's see, I could query. Just take a quick look at that XML. Oops.
While Lois is doing that, because this has been, around a while, the decision was made early on to not use, for the admin app, to not use a normal transactional database. So that's why we're keeping stuff in a database, relational database, but publishing it as XML, static XML. Similarly with the queries, These are all SAS data sets because historically and even now, um, those types of data sets are really found in health departments. Turning my mic off.
Okay, so this is just a peek at that XML that gets returned. And the part of it that gets returned is here. Just make it a little more viewable. So here's the query request URL. This is the URL that got sent to IBIS-Q, and it goes on and on. That I showed you earlier. Then IBIS-Q, the IBIS-Q app, sends this result element. And it has the, here's the data set name, the years, only residents included. All of these are the name value pairs. And then it gets down to the records, data set records that are returned. And these are the values that were formatted by the query application into XML and returned to the view application. All righty. Let's see. One of the things that I wanted to show you was for the community reports. So there are a couple of things that are needed for these data in the admin database to be, or that's in the XML files on the view application to be available to a community report. So here's this is the admin menu. So the administrator, not necessarily the subject matter expert, but the administrator can go in here and say, well, these are the kinds of things I want to be available on my community report. So there are two things actually. Let's see. So the first thing was that they used a county dimension. And if I look at this county dimension table, or the dimension table, where am I? DOCNTY. Right there. You can see that this is, it's a geography, so that means it can be mapped. So that's a flag for the admin or for the view application to map it when it's displayed. And then there's this community flag. So it's also as it's flagged as a community, that means it's available to be included in the community report. But the other thing that's needed for an indicator, for indicator data to be included in a community report is for it to be included in an indicator set. So if you look here, we have different sets of indicators. And here we're looking at health status versus, let's see, we have some lifestyle and risk factors, for instance. And those sets are defined in an admin table. And so if it has those two characteristics, if it uses a dimension that's been defined as a community dimension, and that indicator is included in an indicator set to be used in the community report, then those indicator data will be available in the community reports. Okay, let's see. We looked a little bit at on the query output at types of charts that were available. But these same charts and maps are available to be published with an indicator report. So those are just more definitions in the admin database. We have a chart table and a map table. And then those interact with the leaflet program and the Kendo program that are embedded in the IBIS program. All right. So I think that's a lot of what I wanted to talk about. So there's a welcome page. These, we call them the big easy buttons, take you to various subsets of topics, or you can look at all topics. These are the subsets. And then those, from that topic page, you can get to relevant indicator reports and queries. So we can predefine a query to run with a URL. So we can navigate to a query result using a URL, and that makes it a lot easier for the end user. You can see this one has a lot of missing. It probably could have included more years of data in that. But the problem with that is when you add a new year of data, you have to add those years to the predefined query.
The other piece that I think you should notice on all these pages is there's an awful lot of contextual information. And I think that's one of IBIS' strengths, that for indicator reports, the subject matter expert can copy and paste all this stuff in. For queries, there are also XML files that can be included to add all the contextual information.
And there are a lot of business rules behind it. For instance, here's one here. This is Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System, or BRFSS survey data. The BRFS made a big methodology change between 2010 and 2011. So we, in IBIS, we're able to create a special year dimension that has a break. Then we can use that year dimension with BRFS. It has a break between 2010 and 2011. So that's really useful. And then other dimensions. There's a community group that wanted to see alcohol and substance use data by age, sex, and race. Personally, I think this is a little too much to absorb in a graph, but we responded to the community by creating an age, sex, race combination of dimensions that we're able to apply. All right, more information, important facts. This is some more of that context. What are the evidence-based practices? Where can we go? If I'm a community health council, where can I go to find out if I think substance use is a big problem in my community and alcohol is a big part of that? What should I be doing? So these are the kinds of evidence-based practices that communities can work toward and the state can work toward. Related reports, so you can just go back and forth. Here's binge drinking among high school students, and related topics, alcohol use, injury prevention. So, it's pretty easy to navigate around inside the site, and there's lots of information. Okay, Paul, can you think of anything else that's important for me to look at while we're doing this?
No, I think you covered most stuff. Maybe we should open up for questions. I will say one thing, that the maps, the choropleth data are stored in JSON.
Yeah, the templates for the geographic areas are in JSON. The data are in XML.
Yeah.
There's a program called Geostats that's embedded in the IBIS application that does things like this county, these county data are divided into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups. And that grouping is a statistical grouping that's based it's Jenks natural breaks. It's a kind of an F statistic. So there's more similarity within a group and differences between groups. It's like there's breaks, natural break points, essentially. So that Geostats program is part of the IBIS application that interacts with the XML data and the leaflet open source application. Features we can add. These features are JSON files. The county boundaries are JSON files, polygon files. Oh no. So there's a fair amount of flexibility in how these can be designed and implemented. Okay, I think we can open it up to questions. Does anybody have questions?
Yes, Louis, I do have quite a few questions, and thank you for walking us through the app and going through different components here.
Sure.
So, to start with, can we know the current technical stack of the application?
Oh, funny you should ask. We just produced a PowerPoint for the technical stack and provided it to Justin. We can have him email it, or I could email it to you, Rohit.
Oh, sure, sure. Yeah, if we already have that, that's fine. Thank you.
It's documented, yeah. So I'll let you look at the document instead of talking through it.
Sure, sure. And so
And then
we were
feel free, Rohit, to email Justin or us with questions.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Definitely. We'll send an email over with any additional questions. Thank you for that, Paul. So we were kind of going through the admin module, right? So within the admin module, like who are the admin users in general, and how many users do access the admin portal currently, and how often is the data kind of updated on this admin portal?
Well, ideally, the data would be updated as soon as we get new data in the query system, at least for data sets like birth and death and population data that are queryable in IBIS, we'd like people to update their indicator reports very soon after. And we kind of had a informal deadline that, so we would usually get the new data sets that are updated annually in the fall. And then we'd ask people to update their indicator reports before the legislative session. One of the issues we had, to be honest, is, you know, the big thing that happened was COVID, and nobody had time to do their regular jobs. And then there was turnover, and I retired, and the gal who took over for me just, you know, it was just too much for her. You know, I've been doing this for 20 years, and she was really sharp, Rena. And she did a lot of the SAS query data set updating, but the admin system, it fell behind, and it's still quite behind. I don't know how to, you know, as a contractor, I don't know how to engage department staff again, and it would take leadership paying attention to it and caring about it. And you know, I just don't know how to do that at this point. But anyway, it should be more up to date than it is. This is a list of users, and it's out of date also because many of these people have left. Gary Kelly left.
Judith Gabriel left.
Yep, Judith is still on there. That's Jim Davis left. Some of these users are tribal. JB Kinlachini is from Navajo Epicenter. That we have some tribal data on here. And that's something I meant to describe, that we have secure queries, and this authentication is done in the admin site. So as a user, I used to be the admin, and I gave myself access to all the secure queries because I maintained them all basically, but or almost all of them. But anyway, that's an important feature. What these queries do is, if you remember that death rate for Harding County that was suppressed, heart disease by county, on the secure query, we do not suppress cells. So Harding County is listed, and you can see why it was suppressed. There were only 2 deaths. So there's a numerator and denominator rule. Way back, the denominator was increased a bunch, but so on the public site, Harding County is suppressed. On the secure site, you can see how many deaths there were.
And there's a obviously authentication needed. And since Lois has authenticated already, because she's an admin and stuff, she's able to get to it without the authentication popping up.
Okay.
Okay, so you had more questions, Rohit, so I'll be quiet and let you ask some more questions.
Oh yeah. No, I think like the only other follow-up question on this was like, do we monitor how many active users are on the app? Like for example, out of 70 users right now, do we know who the actual users are kind of going in and updating the data, or is that like kind of we don't go that granular?
You know, it was kind of something that I maintained lists, and I would go into the database and see, you know, which users were owners. There are different user types. So let's see. Let's look at Angie. I think she's still here. User authorities. Oh, she's in user roles. She's an indicator owner. So if I were to log in as Angie, I would see her indicators.
I see. Okay.
But So I would keep lists of these that I would generate from database queries to the database, and say, okay, what indicators are active, who owns them, and who are the editors that have been assigned to edit them. So,
So Lois,
yeah.
So when we'd get new data, what would be kind of like the max concurrent users of admin estimated, I mean, is it
Oh, I would
50,
say
20,
10 to
10?
10 to 15 at any
Yeah,
given time would be
yeah,
pretty much max.
that's what I was
Um,
thinking. And I
now
was hoping
public,
that Rohit, that was kind of addressing your answer. Is that what you wanted?
Yeah, I think like that's one real good information, Paul, there. And the other thing is like in general, like in a nutshell, like what is the overall kind of active users, right? So for example, like right now we have I take Nets as an example here. Let's say we have 200 accounts, but sometimes the users don't actively log in for 6 months or 1 year. So is that something expected within this app, or is it like constantly, like every month we see 15 or 20 active users logging in, right? Like there is
no,
active user base
it would
and they're
ebb and
possible.
flow. It would ebb and flow for sure. Let's see, I think, where is this? I can't remember how to get to it. There are, there's a list of, but I forget where it is now.
That's also something we can get for you.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
But
Yeah, I mean, like
and
it doesn't have to be answered now,
yeah,
but just like if for a referential purpose, I just want to understand like how like the user base would look like, and kind of just like a high level metric, just to be like
yeah,
wrapping my head around it. So yeah, any information will help. Thank you.
So this is, again, this is dated, but Sam
Oh,
left years ago. But this is at this time, whenever it was, these were all the people who could access the admin system to maintain indicators.
got it. Okay. Yeah, I think this is somewhat closer answer.
yeah.
I'm looking for. Yeah, thank you for
And
that.
then on the external facing sites, Lois, do you have a handle? I mean, I know we used to get
We
we
have
have
Google Analytics, but when Clint Sulis, again, COVID and staff turnover. I mean, these are the challenges that the department needs to think about when they're um, deciding on how to disseminate health data. But staff turnover, Rich Bakos has been, I think, he was just overwhelmed when he started, and we stopped getting the Google Analytics reports. And then I don't know what happened. I was getting them weekly and keeping a log, and there were around 1,000 public users every week. And I could get a log that showed what they were accessing, what queries they were requesting, and what indicator pages they were requesting. But again, I retired in 2001, and Rena came on, and nobody maintained
2021.
2021. Thank you, 2021.
Yeah.
And no one has paid any attention to it, so we've kind of lost that. We could go back in Google Analytics, I think, and do reports and get that back, but
Yeah, Rich
it
Rich
hasn't
Baco
been a
still has
priority.
that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. If it's already set up, then I think we can definitely work with Rich on getting that information. But good to know that it was already set up and kind of we have that metrics in place.
Yeah, the Google Analytics code is embedded in every IBIS page.
and
Got it. Okay.
and the environmental protection health has its own, Google ID. So then it's been updated to GA4. Obviously, it has to be now. But yeah, so there would be two. You would see. I mean, you can get statistics from both sites.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you for that information. I think, yeah, definitely we can kind of get some metrics from Rich, just to get a ballpark estimate of like how much user traffic is and stuff like that. So the next question I also have here is that, like, we were talking about SAS data sets briefly, right? So um, I think, Louis, I know some of the data sets like were produced out of nets, and I know
Yep.
like you would give me SAS codes to update and so on, right? So I'm also wondering, like, what are all the potential or like different data sources that we have for SAS? And do we know like the origin system of those data sets? Like, for example, I know some of the data gets pulled from net, so that gives me an idea about either like a disease specific one. But are there any other critical systems that we know of and stuff like that?
Um, so looking here, birth certificates and death certificates, vital records has, I think they're maintained in a relational database similar to how NEDS is. And then they have processes that create analytic data sets in SAS. Same for infant mortality. Those are just a subset of the death data. Cancer incidents, we get a SAS data set from the New Mexico Tumor Registry. And I think if you go, I think maybe I have to run a query. The data sources are listed with the query. So here's the data source and their a link to them. And in the admin system, data sources are here. So these are all the data sources that have been used for indicator reports. And some of these are
Got it.
also
Okay. Yeah.
query data sources.
So the way and correct me if I'm wrong, Lois, but the way I understand that this has been done in the past or even now is there are owners of these, there's owners of the data sources, and they will either give
Stewards, we
us,
call them, data stewards.
data stewards. They will either give us a SAS data set built to requirements. There's just a few things in there, like, there needs to be a counting variable that they may not have in their own. Or they'll give us a data set with variables in it, or we'll obtain one and then we'll massage it so that it does work in IBIS. But it's the for the most part, we get the data from the stewards or the owners. So and with the survey data, that's CDC, I guess, distributes that to the states, but then there's like for BRFSS, there's a data steward for BRFSS, and they will provide us either, I think what we do is they provide us with a data set, and then we run a SAS program and add and modify with what we need.
Uh-oh.
Let's see. I think that's all I can say right now.
Yeah,
I guess the
mean,
other thing is,
the analytic
if
data
you,
sets, that the data stewards produce for most department staff have too much in them. So we trim them back to what's needed for the IBIS query, essentially, and create age groupings. That's basically what we do for IBIS.
Got it. So there is some level of kind of processing that we do post. We get the data sets from different sources, right?
Right, and I just did that to relieve the data stewards from more work. You know, that
Good, yeah.
it would be nice to have the data stewards provide exactly what's needed, but then I felt like it would really delay my acquisition of data from the data stewards. You know, I was years behind with some of them because people just, I don't know what. You know, again, you need the support from the top, and you need people to be paying attention and valuing it. It's a hard thing. It's not a
Yep, agreed.
technical
Yeah.
thing.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely a kind of overhead that we have with like some of the data quality and data kind of gathering requirements all the time.
Yep. Anything else?
Um, yeah, so I think just at a high level, so is this application currently hosted on DOH servers or are they hosted out of DOH network currently?
They're on DOH virtual machines, or it's the front. Yeah, the front end. Let's see.
They're all on DOH virtual machines. And
Yes.
in the tech stack, I think the last two slides kind of show the architecture.
Yeah, and they're using Microsoft SQL, aren't they?
Yes. You know,
Yeah.
IBIS can run with different relational databases, but yeah, we're using SQL Server. I think it's 2019. I
Mm-hmm.
could be wrong. And that the databases, you know, the database servers, you know, they're maintained by the DOH database group. Once the servers are set up, there's really not, or for the, so these are all Tomcat. Well, so there's a proxy server, an Apache proxy server that sits in front of, that sits in the DMZ, that handles requests for both NMEPHT and NMIBIS. Also handles requests for, there's another server that handles requests for our staging or verify server. It's also open to the public because sometimes we get data externally and those folks need to be able to review it. Um, everything is encrypted. Security want us to do that, so there's end-to-end encryption. There's a IBIS zone, which is kind of like a special DMZ zone. Those are where the Tomcat application servers are. There's this server that runs SAS also has an Apache with CGI on it. May be able to get to run under IIS, but we just never spent the time or money to do that. That server is on the DOH network. Everything else is in separate DMZs. It's just the way Leaf wanted it set up.
Agreed. Okay, got it. Yeah, I think maybe we might have more questions as we process some of the information that we're going to get from Justin. So I think those are all the questions I have for now. So thank you, Paul and Louis, for.
Anyone else?
I just have one last thing, and I think this is in the tech stack as well. The the charting package, which is also does tables as well as graphs, and the tables are used in different places besides just displaying the results. That Lois said is Kendo by a company called Telerik. They have, I believe they have the same package for different frameworks and also one for .NET, if that's but that's just something to look at. And it's I think it's you can, I think, run it without cost. If you want maintenance, I think it's like $1,000 a year or something, which is pretty reasonable, I guess, if you were going to go that route.
Oh yeah. Right now, I think we are using Telerik tools for some of our
Okay.
existing null applications. So
Okay.
we're kind of a little bit more familiar with using those Kendo software. So I think, yeah, pretty much if the plans to kind of start using .NET Stack on this app or stuff like that, I think that's definitely an inclined direction that we might head in as well. So thanks for
Okay.
that input.
Sure. I guess
All right, well.
I guess one more thing, and then I have to leave because I have another appointment. There is work. I believe it's actually working to for certain items to reference other mapping systems like ArcGIS. That sometimes they're just embedded in a frame. The we we stayed away from that because it seemed to be sometimes confusing to the user because they have certain navigation in IBIS, and then when they go to ArcGIS, it's different navigation. But there's at least the ability to say integrate.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I think those are really good inputs, and thank you again for sharing those all with us.
You're very welcome. So, Justin?
Yep. I was about to say, if nobody else has any questions, I think we're good. Again, the purpose of this was just to get you guys sort of familiar with the concept of the IBIS platform, because it will be entering DOH hands eventually after a migration and potential reimplementation into .NET. So, or whatever the preferred, DOH stack is. So just wanting to get you guys thinking on that sort of stuff and asking the questions you have been. So I appreciate everybody's attendance. Yeah.
And you can send out that text
Yes, I sure
stack
can.
doc. Thank you.
Yep. And thank you, Paul and Lois, for your time and your demonstration. It's much appreciated.
You're very welcome.
You're very
Thank you,
welcome.
Jake.
Great.
All right.
Well, thank you, everybody. I think we're done here
Okay.
for now.
Yep. Thank you all.
All right.
Have a good afternoon.
You
See ya.
too. Bye-bye.
Appreciate it, guys.